Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following. Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk, the Iran deal, an effective way to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons, or an irresponsible proposal that puts the nation's security at risk. Across the country and in Indiana, it depends who you ask.
I think the president was desperate to get any kind of a deal. I think there'll be long-term negative consequences for this.
I think that deals are strong when they're in both countries' interests.
When patients are in life or death situations, the majority want to talk about their religious beliefs with their medical team.
I think there's a big misconception within medicine that, or even within our culture, that things are socially taboo.
Ahead, more on this growing trend and how it's affecting the way doctors treat illnesses. Plus, a $300 million announcement from Indiana University. We talked to President Michael McRobbie about the grand challenges. Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. President Obama's proposed nuclear agreement with Iran has been on the table for months. Congress is deeply divided along party lines whether to lift sanctions on the country and pursue nuclear energy. Republicans say allowing Iran access to nuclear energy could lead to a nuclear arms race in the region. Democrats say lifting sanctions could help the Iranian middle class thrive and support international relations in the Middle East. This discussion is a hot topic in Washington, D.C., and as Sophia Salabi reports, various groups in Indiana are also weighing in, trying to persuade Indiana's congressional representatives of their views on the deal.
David Keppel has been hard at work rallying support in southern Indiana for the United States nuclear deal with Iran since its announcement earlier this summer.
Well, as we saw the negotiations getting closer, we realized that this would hinge on Congress. And we have worked very hard to show Senator Joe Donnelly and Senator Dan Coates and Congressman Todd Young that there's strong grassroots support for the deal.
Democratic Senator Joe Donnelly announced his support of the deal in August, but Republican Senator Dan Coates and all of Indiana's Republican representatives in Congress are firmly against the deal. One of their primary concerns is that the agreement is not enough to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
I think there'll be long-term negative consequences for this, and I'm very, very concerned about an arms race in the Middle East now that will take place that could lead to a nuclear Armageddon. We could have done much better. We could have negotiated much more. We had the leverage. We gave it away in a desperate attempt to please Iran, and they're cheering in the streets of Tehran. And still calling death to America and calling us the great Satan. So I don't think that turns out to be the deal we should have struck.
Even though the deal sets up an in-depth inspection process to ensure Iran doesn't cheat on the deal, many still have concerns that the money freed up from the end of sanctions will go to terrorist organizations in the region.
They've stuffed out every attempt at liberalization. So I think we're dealing with a rogue nation here, and we've just given them power and money, well over $100 billion now, to rebuild themselves, and they'll be a much wealthier, much more capable nation in the future with disruption of everything in the Middle East and jeopardizing not just Israel, but many of their neighbors.
Supporters of the agreement are confident the deal is a diplomatic solution strong enough to prevent Iran from enriching the needed amount of uranium to make a nuclear weapon, at least until the agreement's expiration date in 15 years.
Iran is a state that understands its interests and that acts rationally.
Faisal Istrabadi, founding director of Indiana University's Center for the Study of the Middle East, addressed critics' concerns during a recent panel discussion at IU.
Of course, Iran can cheat,
but hopefully and presumably the technology for detecting that cheating will improve over the 10 to 15 years. And in the meantime, it controls Iran's nuclear program at least over the life of the agreement.
The Iran deal has been voted down by the House, and it's being deliberated in the Senate, but a disapproval from Congress doesn't mean an end for the agreement. A veto by President Obama, supported by enough votes, would let the deal go through. As long as Congress has the issues in front of them, David Keppel says he'll continue to make the case for diplomacy from Bloomington.
I think that deals are strong when they're in both countries' interests. This deal is strongly in Iran's interest, and it's in our interest, and they're not conflicting.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Sophia Salaby.
And Lee Hamilton joins us now, the Director, Center on Congress, to continue this discussion. Can you explain to us a little bit more about what just happened in Congress to let this go through? And then along with that, what's this process been like for lawmakers?
Well, it's been a tough go for lawmakers. They've been debating it for 60 days or so. Very intense pressure on all of them, both for and against. A lot of money spent to favor it, a lot of money spent against it. This is a big deal. This is a big vote for the lawmakers. That decision's been made, and the agreement is going to go forward. So the real question now is what happens after the agreement goes into effect, and are we going to oversee robustly the implementation of the agreement?
What's that process of implementation?
Well, we saw in the headlines this morning that the president appointed a so-called czar from the executive branch to look over implementation. I'm skeptical of the word czar in the American government, but we use it a lot. But I'm glad the president did it. It's the right step. The Congress has to do the same thing. Now, the Congress has been debating whether to accept the agreement or not. That's a proper debate. But what they have not done is set up a mechanism to provide oversight so that you get compliance with this very complicated agreement. I hope they will do that within the next few days.
So what happens at the end of these next 15 years? Will Iran be able to get a nuclear weapon at that point, or what will lawmakers have to do?
This is a limited agreement in time. I think for 15 years it is the best possible way to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And the critics seem to accept that, incidentally, and they worry about the time after the 15 or maybe 20-year period. They're correct to worry about that. So we have to keep our eyes and ears open and be prepared for what comes. But the immediate problem is to see that Iran complies with the agreement, that there are strong enforcement procedures. If they do comply, fine, they won't develop a bomb. If they do not comply, then there have been no limitations on our actions, what actions we can take. So we're not risking anything here by this agreement.
Would you call this a historic moment? And if so, how big a deal is this to us?
It's a big deal. This is the most important agreement, I think, for the Obama administration, certainly towards the end of his presidency. There's a lot at stake here. This is a tumultuous region of the world. You can't solve all the problems there. This agreement doesn't solve all the problems, but it does solve the immediate, most serious problem, the dash of Iran towards a nuclear weapon. And therefore, it deserves our support, provided they comply, and we have to be vigilant on that point.
And I can tell at that panel they had overflow capacity crowds, so big interest. Thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice to be with you, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for headlines, we go over to Lindsay Wright, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. Donald Trump was again the center of this week's Republican presidential debate. But during the 3-hour spectacle, there was room for some of the other 10 candidates on stage to momentarily steal the spotlight and try to make their case as to why they should win the Republican nomination. Sarah Whitmire has this recap and reaction from Hoosier voters.
I don't think you'd even be talking about illegal immigration if it weren't for me. So we have a country of laws. They're going to go out, and they'll come back if they deserve to come back. If they've had a bad record, if they've been arrested, if they've been in jail, they're never coming back. We're going to have a country again.
A lack of understanding about how the world works is really dangerous in this kind of time that we're saying. So is that the judgment that you bring to the table, that Hillary Clinton is a great negotiator, that she could...
John, I'm not done yet, John.
A track record of leadership is not a game. It is the issue in this election.
Carly, listen, you can interrupt everybody else on the stage, you can't interrupt me, okay? The fact is that we don't want to hear about your careers, back and forth and volleying back and forth about who did well and who did poorly. You're both successful people. Congratulations.
After watching the debate, Jim Getting says he's ready for a real conversation about where the candidates stand on the issue.
Obviously, Donald Trump stood out the most, and it was because he's a complete jerk. And unfortunately, this has become the Donald Trump show, sideshow, rather than a real debate among the candidates and the issues.
I think under heavy attack, Donald obviously held his ground, but at the same time, Christie looked like a very good candidate who is focused and trying to stay on the, I guess, the ears of the middle class and people who are either suffering or want to see more progress in the White House.
I'm increasingly impressed by Ben Carson and Fiorina. I like most of the candidates. And then a few I'm kind of mixed on. I would not vote for Trump.
I'm not a Republican, so I hope they go for the biggest clown they can, and they certainly had a good selection.
2012 Republican presidential candidate John Huntsman happened to be in Bloomington for a speaking engagement the night of the debate. He says negativity is keeping the candidates from discussing real solutions to the world's problems.
There are plenty of people with the kind of experience needed to talk about everything from health care reform to America's role in the world. And that's what we ought to be doing. Up to now, it really has been a race to the bottom to see who can outdo the other.
The next debate is between the Democratic presidential candidates. That's October 13th, also on CNN. One of the most high-profile critics of the religious freedom law is launching an advocacy organization to push for statewide LGBT civil rights laws. Bill Osterly left his position as CEO at Angie's List to focus on civic engagement. He reemerged this week with the launch of Tech for Equality. He says the group will bring the voices of Indiana's tech community to the legislature to advocate for LGBT civil rights. Hoosiers have a 2-month window to pay off back taxes without any penalties, fines, or interest. Indiana announced its tax amnesty program this week. As Jordan Sharp reports, officials expect it to bring in tens of millions of dollars.
Department of Revenue Commissioner Andrew Kosick says more than 260,000 people are eligible for the tax amnesty program and will be sent letters notifying them of the opportunity. He says the program is especially useful for taxpayers with old debts.
It could be that some of these taxpayers just could not pay today even if they wanted to, if they had to pay interest and penalties and collection fees. So, this gives them an opportunity to pay at a lower rate. We can put them on payment plans and so forth.
The first $84 million collected by the tax amnesty program goes to the state's new Regional Cities initiative, with the next $6 million helping the Department of Transportation pay for the Hoosier State Rail line. Kosick says he's cautiously optimistic the program will reach the $90 million mark. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Jordan Sharp.
Indiana is expected to again rank in the top 5 states for meth lab seizures. This comes despite tougher restrictions on pseudoephedrine, one of the key ingredients in methamphetamine. There were nearly 1,500 lab seizures in the state last year. As of this July, police had already busted nearly 1,000 labs in the state. There are limits on how much pseudoephedrine you can buy in Indiana, but other states have gone further, making it a controlled substance. The other part of the problem is imported meth from other countries, which is also on the rise. The question of whether to label GMO produce at the Bloomington Farmers Market drew a lot of debate at a meeting earlier this week. Alexander McCall has the story.
Always come prepared. Farmer David Simmons stood in front of the crowd holding 2 ears of corn and asked a question.
But can anyone tell me which one's GMO and which one's not?
One of the ears was from his farm and the other was from Kroger. His point was they both looked the same, and he argued they'd taste the same too. A recent study from Indiana University showed 77% of community members want GMO labeling on their food. But Bloomington Farmers Market coordinator Marcia Veldman says before any decision is made about whether to label produce at the market, they want to get input and learn more about GMOs. That was the purpose of the meeting.
People are concerned about food and food safety and are eager to get a better understanding of it.
GMO stands for genetically modified organism, and critics say, among other things, GMOs have led to an increase in herbicide and pesticide-resistant weeds and bugs. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Alexander McCall.
And Joe, the final decision on GMO labeling will be left up to the City Parks Department.
All right, thank you very much, Lindsay. And coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. A new Indiana University initiative could have far-reaching implications. We sit down with IU's president to learn more about how a $300 million challenge might be used to solve some of the biggest issues facing the world. Things such as ending sexual violence, sustainability, and aging. Plus, you're sick and in the hospital. Would you want your doctor to offer to pray with you? Ahead, we look at the connection between spirituality and medicine. How's it being taught in medical schools and how that might impact your care? These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
We are a nation of explorers. We seek new ways of living, of thinking, and of expressing ourselves. We take risks. We learn from experience. And we keep moving forward. That's why we encourage and celebrate the explorer in all of us.
$10,000.
15? 15, you think?
20, 21,000?
600.
20. 18.5.
24.
It's at least 40.
Look at it.
4,500,000.
650.
20.
650.
This textile would be worth about $500,000.
$500,000?
No way!
I knew it's just a blanket.
Laying on the back of a chair. Well, sir, you have a national treasure. Wow. A national treasure. Congratulations.
I can't believe this.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Indiana University plans to invest $300 million over the next 5 years in a Grand Challenges research program. I sat down with President Michael McRobbie this week to learn more. I began by asking him how this initiative is different than other research efforts.
What we're doing is we're aggregating resources and funding from right across the university, the Bloomington campus, Indianapolis campus, School of Medicine, the regional campuses will participate, and then the Central University Administration will participate too. And we're bringing all of this funding together to focus on 4 or 5, 3 or 4 really large-scale major research projects in the university, rather than that money being used to fund a series of smaller projects. What we're trying to do is say, let's look at what are some really major problems that are confronting the state, the nation, humanity more generally. How can we really have a substantial impact on these problems?
So speaking of our viewers here in Indiana, maybe watching this, and for them the grand challenge might be who's going to win the next basketball game or football game. What does this program, or how does this program affect residents in Indiana?
Well, it's first and foremost focused on grand challenges that can have an impact in Indiana. I mean, clearly that could involve, say, projects in the area of public health, which is a very broad area too, of course. We have the largest school of medicine in the country based here in Indiana. We have now, as of earlier this year, 2 schools, the only 2 schools of public health. We have the only school of dentistry, the only school of optometry. We have one of the largest schools of nursing in the country. So I expect that a strong program or strong project will emerge from those schools. But there's also first-rate work being done in all kinds of different areas of the energy sciences and related areas as well. We have no presuppositions as to what final successful projects might look like.
When this is all said and done, this was a good project because?
Because it had a tangible, measurable impact on the quality of life of people in Indiana, the citizens of the state, people more broadly across the nation, and maybe even humanity more generally.
Proposals are due November 9th, and finalists will be notified in January. 1 or 2 projects will be chosen from this round, and the goal, President McRobbie says, is to add 1 to 2 projects every year for the next 5 years. Medical school students have rigorous classwork. There are terms to be memorized and techniques to master, but more patients are also expecting doctors to be able to meet their spiritual needs. Schools are responding, and many of them are focusing on holistic medicine. Gretchen Frazee reports.
Marian University's Osteopathic School of Medicine in Indianapolis teaches its students a little differently.
The body is capable of self-regulation, self-healing.
In addition to the basics, Marian emphasizes the main tenet of osteopathic medicine, that a person is made up of mind, body, and spirit.
I think there's a big misconception within medicine, or even within our culture, that things are socially taboo, or that we can't be politically correct if we're talking about these topics. But the reality is a lot of patients want to talk about these things with doctors.
Kevin Krieger was attracted to Marian University because of its emphasis on spirituality, and he isn't the only one. There are 31 accredited osteopathic medical schools in the U.S., and 10 of them have opened in the past decade. Marian opened just 2 years ago.
This is a national level process. The issue of spirituality in medicine is something that's being addressed across the country and in some instances across the world.
So what does addressing spirituality actually look like in doctors' offices and hospitals? In many instances, it's still left up to assigned chaplains like Sean Gerber.
I'm chaplain, so I visit patients, families, and staff up on the units and offer emotional and spiritual support.
Patients, friends, or family often ask Gerber to give them comforting words or pray with them, but he can't see everyone in the building, and some people might not think they're in a difficult enough situation to need a chaplain. That's why he also advises doctors not to be shy about connecting with patients on a spiritual level.
The important thing is to know how to meet other people where they're at.
To figure out where patients are spiritually, more hospitals are starting to take what's called a spiritual history. It's similar to a medical history, except that it asks you about your beliefs, so that doctors know how to address spiritual or mental stress. That's important because many patients want their doctors to know about their spiritual issues, especially if their medical condition is serious. A 2003 study from the National Institutes of Health found that 1/3 of patients wanted to be asked about their religious beliefs during a routine office visit. 40% said they would welcome a spiritual inquiry if they were hospitalized, and that number jumped to 70% when patients imagined themselves in a situation where they were dying. Doctors who've been working with patients for decades say learning how to address different patients' needs in those scenarios isn't easy.
Sometimes my question very simply to people is, I would say something like, I can tell this is just really hard. Where do you turn for strength? I think patients really crave a sense that their physician is a human being, and so I think maybe there is a loss of balance there, and we can try to find ways to get things more balanced.
Dr. Stone says he thinks implementing more spirituality training through medical school could help.
Those first 2 years of medical school, I think all medical schools have some parts of their curriculum alongside the anatomy and physiology and pathology where they address some of these issues, I think really trying to get at caring. But they end up always getting crowded by these other big subjects like anatomy and physiology. So, start strong but finish weak is, I think, the way a lot of it goes.
Marian University's first class of medical students is just entering their 3rd year, and Dean Evans says the school is trying to structure the curriculum so they don't forget the spiritual training they learned in the first 2 years.
We, by intent, have incorporated that into our clerkship syllabi for the 3rd year and the 4th year. It's variable depending on what your rotation is. So for example, if you're doing a palliative care rotation where there are a lot of issues about death and dying, that's very important. On the other hand, if you're doing a radiology rotation looking at images, not as much.
Dean Evans says in the broader medical community, there's even been talk of making spirituality training a core competency. That would mean medical students would have to be tested on it like they would any other skill. That would mean more work for those students who already have a lot on their plates. But the students I talked to here at Marian University say they'd be up for the challenge. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Gretchen Frazee.
And IU's last home non-conference game is tomorrow against Western Kentucky. The Hoosiers are 2-0 this season. Kickoff is at 4 o'clock. Next week they're on the road, and then they return on October 3rd to take on the #1 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes. And that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following. Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters, with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.